Kings who used marriage as a weapon. Imagine conquering half of Europe without ever drawing a sword. Imagine toppling empires, reshaping religions, and building dynasties that would rule for centuries, all from a marriage bed. While most kings waged war with armies, some of history's most ruthless rulers discovered a far more elegant weapon: marriage. And what they achieved was absolutely terrifying. Today we're diving into the dark art of matrimonial warfare, where wedding vows were battle strategies, and "I do" meant "I conquer." These aren't love stories. These are chess games played with human lives, where the stakes were kingdoms and the players were utterly ruthless. By the end of this video, you'll never look at a royal wedding the same way again. Before we begin, quick question. If you could acquire an entire country just by saying, "I do," would you marry someone you'd never met? Would you marry someone you didn't love? Would you marry your enemy? Keep that question in mind, because the kings we're about to meet answered yes without hesitation, and they changed the world because of it. Let's start with a couple that literally created Spain. 1. Ferdinand and Isabella, the marriage that created a superpower. It's 1469. The Iberian Peninsula is a fractured mess of competing Christian kingdoms. Castile and Aragon are rivals, constantly at each other's throats. Enter two teenagers, Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon. Their marriage wasn't arranged by loving parents hoping for grandchildren. This was a calculated political coup. The power move. When Isabella and Ferdinand married, they didn't just unite two people. They united two kingdoms and created what we now know as Spain. But here's where it gets interesting. They didn't stop there. They had 5 children, and each one became a weapon. Their daughter Catherine shipped off to England to marry Prince Arthur, securing an alliance with the emerging Tudor dynasty. When Arthur died, they married her to his brother, the future Henry VIII, because you don't waste a perfectly good diplomatic asset. Another daughter, Juana, married Philip of Burgundy. This single marriage eventually brought Spain control over the Netherlands, parts of Italy, and massive chunks of Central Europe through the Habsburg inheritance. One wedding, millions of subjects added to the Spanish crown. Their son Juan was married to Margaret of Austria, while daughter Maria went to Portugal, encircling their kingdoms with family alliances. But here's what they don't tell you in history class. These children were miserable. Catherine of Aragon would be divorced and humiliated by Henry VIII. Juana literally went insane. They called her Juana la Loca, Juana the Mad. She was so devastated by her husband's death that she reportedly traveled with his corpse for years. Ferdinand and Isabella knew this might happen. They didn't care, because to them, their children weren't children. They were investments, and the return on those investments was extraordinary. 2. The Habsburgs, the family that married an empire. Now, if Ferdinand and Isabella were good at this game, the Habsburg dynasty were the undisputed world champions. There's a famous Latin phrase about them: Bella gerant ali tu felix Austria nube. It means, let others wage war, but you, happy Austria, marry. And marry they did. How it worked. The Habsburgs turned marriage into a multi-generational strategy game. Here's how insane this got. Emperor Maximilian I married Mary of Burgundy, acquiring the wealthy Burgundian Netherlands, basically modern-day Belgium and the Netherlands, some of the richest territories in Europe. Then he married his son Philip to Juana of Castile. Yes, the same Juana from earlier who went mad. When Isabella and Ferdinand died, this made Philip and Juana the rulers of Spain and all its New World colonies. Maximilian's grandson, Charles, inherited everything. At 19 years old, Charles V ruled Spain, the Netherlands, Austria, parts of Italy, parts of Germany, and vast territories in the Americas. He controlled more of Europe than anyone since Charlemagne, and he never fought a single battle to get most of it. His empire was so vast that the sun literally never set on it. But the Habsburgs' obsession with strategic marriage had a dark consequence. To keep power in the family, they started marrying each other. Cousins married cousins, uncles married nieces. By the time we get to Charles II of Spain in the late 1600s, the Habsburg family tree looked more like a family wreath. Charles II was so inbred he could barely speak, couldn't chew his food properly, and was completely infertile. The Spanish Habsburg line died with him. They literally bred themselves into extinction by treating marriage as a weapon for too long. 3. Henry VIII, the king who broke Christianity for a marriage. The ultimate marriage warrior. You knew he was coming. Henry VIII had 6 wives, and while he's famous for beheading 2 of them, what's often overlooked is how ruthlessly strategic his marriages actually were. Marriage as war. His first marriage to Catherine of Aragon? That was to maintain the alliance with Spain, the superpower of the era. For 24 years, this marriage was the cornerstone of English foreign policy. But when Catherine couldn't give him a male heir, Henry didn't just divorce her, he literally broke England away from the Roman Catholic Church, created a new church with himself as the head, and triggered religious wars that would rage for over a century. Think about that. He reshaped the entire religious landscape of Europe because of a marriage problem. The other wives, Anne Boleyn, wasn't just a romantic obsession. She represented the Protestant faction at court. Marrying her was a political statement. Jane Seymour gave him his male heir, Edward, before dying in childbirth. Mission accomplished from Henry's cold perspective. Anne of Cleves was a pure political marriage to secure an alliance with German Protestant princes. When Henry decided he didn't need that alliance anymore, he annulled the marriage after 6 months. She was described as the Flanders mare. Basically, he ghosted her politically. Catherine Howard was young and from a powerful Catholic family. Another political calculation that backfired when she was accused of adultery. His final wife, Catherine Parr, was chosen partly because she could serve as regent and manage his children from previous marriages. 2 executed, 2 annulled, 1 died, 1 survived, and England would never be the same. 4. Louis XIV, the Sun King's marriage machine. Louis XIV ruled France for 72 years, and he spent most of that time arranging marriages like a grandmaster playing simultaneous chess games. His own marriage to Maria Theresa of Spain ended the Franco-Spanish War and was designed to keep Spain neutral while France expanded elsewhere. But Louis's real genius was in his grandchildren. He married his son to a Spanish princess, maneuvered his grandson Philip onto the Spanish throne, and nearly united the French and Spanish crowns, which would have created an unstoppable Catholic superpower. This terrified the rest of Europe so much that it triggered the War of Spanish Succession, one of the bloodiest conflicts of the early 18th century. Louis essentially gambled that he could use a marriage to achieve what his armies couldn't. Control of Spain, and he almost pulled it off. 5. Peter the Great. Marriage as social engineering. Peter the Great took the marriage weapon in a completely different direction. He didn't just use marriages to gain territory, he used them to completely restructure Russian society. Peter forced his nobility to marry Westerners. He annulled his own traditional Russian marriage and married Catherine, a Lithuanian peasant who had been a servant. When he died, she became Empress Catherine I. By forcing these marriages, Peter broke the power of the old Russian nobility and dragged Russia kicking and screaming into the modern European political system. He weaponized marriage not against foreign enemies, but against his own aristocracy, the legacy. So what did all these marriage weapons actually accomplish? They created Spain. They built the Habsburg Empire. They split the Christian church. They modernized Russia. They drew the map of Europe that we still recognize today. But they also destroyed lives. Juana la Loca, driven insane. Catherine of Aragon, humiliated and cast aside. Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard, executed. Countless Habsburg children born with severe disabilities from inbreeding. These kings understood something brutal. In the Game of Thrones, love was a luxury they couldn't afford. Marriage was too powerful a weapon to waste on something as trivial as personal happiness. Final thought. The next time you see a modern royal wedding, remember this tradition comes from a time when "till death do us part" often meant until you're no longer politically useful. These weren't fairy tales. They were hostile takeovers with wedding rings, and the kings who mastered this weapon conquered more than any army ever could. If you found this fascinating, smash that like button and subscribe for more dark history content. Drop a comment telling me which royal marriage you think was the most ruthless. I'm reading every single one. And if you want to see more videos on how power really works throughout history, check out the video I made on related topics right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.